Hello fellow mutants, welcome back to another video. And as we've seen in the Clone Wars, Yoda did have a vision, or in like season 6 of the Clone Wars, of Yoda did have a vision of Order 66, right? And we see that Yoda was in a position to like warn the other Jedi about the darkness that was coming. But as I guess you can say, seen in both season 7 of the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, Yoda didn't warn the Jedi about the darkness rising. And maybe because he didn't know who Darth Sidious was at the time, who knows? But still, Yoda still chose not to warn the other Jedi. Yeah, the Jedi Order is going to fall, and most of us here in the current Jedi Order ain't gonna be around to see what happens like 30-ish years in the future. So yeah. So let's read this article that's titled Yoda was warned about Order 66 at the beginning of the Clone Wars, but why did he ignore it? My theory before going to this, because maybe this will have an actual like explanation why Yoda ignored it. Maybe because he figured it needed to happen in order to like make the Jedi stronger. That maybe they needed to go a little bit like close to the brink of extinction in order to make so they can have a strong comeback and be stronger. But I also wonder if he like could sense like Luke's order in the Disney timeline. If Yoda would've then tried to warn the Jedi. I don't know. Anyways, let's read. Star Wars revealed Yoda received a warning about Order 66 at the start of the Clone Wars. It felt like towards the end of the Clone Wars, not towards the beginning. Anyways, it's unclear why the Jedi Master chose to ignore it. Order 66 wiped out most of the Jedi Order, so if Yoda knew about it in advance, then he could have taken steps to make sure it didn't happen. The entire Star Wars saga would drastically change with this outcome. Having the Jedi Order survive and the Sith defeated. And my screen went black, so in case audio messed up, Order 66 wiped out most of the Jedi Order. And if Yoda knew in advance, then he could have taken steps to make sure it didn't happen. And that is true, he could have taken steps to make sure it didn't happen. The entire Star Wars saga would drastically change with this outcome, having the Jedi survive and the Sith defeated earlier in the timeline. From this point of view, it seems clear that Yoda should have listened to the warning. However, the situation was much more complicated, as Qui-Gon Jinn would say. Each era of Star Wars features a Jedi character burdened with knowledge about the future, and each situation leads to a different outcome. Anakin Skywalker had visions of his loved ones dying. Luke Skywalker saw his friends in pain, and Rey believed Ben Solo would turn back to the light. Star Wars: The Clone Wars also had several characters in this situation, including Ahsoka Tano, Anakin, and on more than one occasion Yoda. With so many warnings of the future and a number of different outcomes, it's worth considering whether Yoda was ultimately right to ignore his own warning about Order 66. So, now we're going to go into the actual vision. Like, Yoda had a vision of Jack's role in Order 66. Yoda's warning came from a vision of Jack, one of the two clones who eventually tried to kill him on Kashyyyk during Order 66. This was in sharing the same face as adaptation of the Clone Wars Season 1, Episode 1, Ambush, which is like one of my favorite episodes of all in Clone Wars history. Which was featured to be an anthology of the Clone Wars Story of the Light and Dark. During his meditation, Yoda had a vision and sensed Jack's feeling of disbelief and regret. But a moment later, those feelings were gone, replaced by the need to obey. Although the vision is vague, it shows a clone soldier following orders too quickly, something Yoda had just been concerned about early in the story. That part, yeah, was early in the Clone Wars. So I can actually see that. Even if there were multiple ways to interpret the vision, its meaning should have become clear to Yoda later in the war. I can agree with that. The Jedi eventually discovered that all the clone soldiers have inhibitor chips to make them more compliant. And a Jedi Master was killed when one of the chips malfunctioned. Yeah, it was like one of the twin... There were like these twins that were females. And I think it was in like season 5 of the Clone Wars. And that's the season that they're referring to. If you guys were wondering which season, it's season 5. I forget which episode though. Dooku's role in creating the clone army was also revealed, and Yoda experienced a more detailed vision of Order 66 on Dagobah. The fact that Yoda was warned and given plenty of context without the Clone Wars makes it clear that the Jedi should have discovered Order 66. Yeah, and I feel like that part that they mentioned was marked within the last year of the war. And yeah, they should have. At least with Yoda's perspective, and maybe it did. Click with him that, yeah, the Jedi are gonna die. And there's no way to stop it in this scenario. Even though, like, 20-ish years later, Yoda tells, Luke, always in motion the future is. So, I don't know. Last read the part where they're saying why Yoda ignored the Force warnings. However, Yoda ignoring the Force warnings made sense from his point of view. Yoda reminded himself, ensuring the same Force, that the visions of the future were a dangerous lure, and that many Jedi had been led astray while trying to prevent them. Anakin's fault was a perfect example of this, letting his fear of Padme dying drive him to the dark side. As for the evidence that came later, Yoda believed that the Jedi had already lost by participating in the Clone Wars. He wanted to prevent the Order 66, but he also feared what would happen if the Jedi gave into fear over visions of the future. Still, it's unclear whether Yoda was right to ignore the warning. Sometimes, listening to visions of the future leads to positive outcomes, like when Ahsoka prevented Padme's assassinations. Luke could have listened to Yoda about rescuing his friends, and his love and loyalty were Luke's best. Luke could have listened to Yoda about rescuing his friends, but his love and loyalty were Luke's best qualities. Something he may have lost had he stayed on Dagobah. It was Yoda's brief vision of the Sith's defeat that made him confident that the light would triumph, which only happened because of Luke. Whether Yoda was right to ignore his Order 66 warning in Star Wars will always be up for debate, but his views and experience make clear why he did. And here's my take on it. I feel like it's kind of hard to judge whether Yoda made the right move about ignoring the Force visions per se, because a lot of variables, of course. On one hand, Yoda could have told the Jedi, the Jedi Council, formulated a plan, and they could have potentially oh escaped the Order 66 fate. But at the same time, by trying to dodge that, it could have like replaced the whole Order 66 thing with a different outcome. That could have been like much, much worse and could have annihilated literally all the Jedi besides most of the Jedi. And so like I don't know. I think Yoda did make the best decision with the cars he was dealt with. Especially since with the cars he dealt with essentially helped defeat the Sith. Until like Disney decided, hey, yeah, Darth Sidious, he died. But he somehow came back, but we're not gonna tell you in the film. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Yoda, like I said, did the right thing in with the cards that he was dealt with at that time. Especially since, like I said, I don't think anyone would have known if he. I don't know if nobody would have known if the Jedi like prevented Order 66 of something far worse, like a Baloth. I think that's what Star Wars villain's name, right? I forget if a Baloth was a Star Wars or a Marvel villain, but like kind of like a greater threat than Darth Sidious would have replaced it. So that said, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Guy one other. Talk to you fellow mutants later. May the force be with us all.